Then we have the All Sales tab. So when we look at the sales, I'm going to go to the plus button, which is now located over here because I have this hidden, or the hamburger is closed. So if I hit the plus button, remember all of these basically forms are under the what I would call the sales center or the customer center. So we have the customer here, over here we're in the sales tab, customer center, sales center, revenue center. And so that means that here we've got most of those forms that you can basically sort by in a similar way as when we looked at the vendor side or the expenses center or expenses tab. We had the expenses tab up top, which gave us basically an ability to sort by forms under this category. So now we have the capacity under the sales tab to sort by forms that are under the customer center. So we have all transactions, so we can look at all transactions and sort them. Most likely the main form that we're going to look at is the invoices, because that means that we invoice the client, accounts receivable went up, and if it's unpaid, we're going to look for those unpaid invoices. However, they give us a whole nother tab to do that. This tab over here is designed specifically to sort the invoices. So it's a little bit redundant. That's probably where we would go. Notice if I look at the invoices, it adds up to 10,134. If I go into the balance sheet and look at accounts receivable, it's only at the 5,281. So I think this is including both invoices that are closed and not closed. Here's the status. So I hit the status. If I go to open invoices, now we're at 5,851.52. That should tie out to what's on the balance sheet, which is 5,281. 5,281? 5,851. They got those numbers backwards. They're messing with me, man. They're messing with my backwards head. So, any case, it should tie out. Generally, we'll take a look at the subledger, and it will tie out basically generally exactly. But there is that, so we can search by the open items there, and then and by delivery method, send later or print later. Okay, and so let's go to the next one, estimates. Now estimates, if I look at the flow chart over here, this is a desktop flow chart, but just to get an idea of the flow here, if we have to invoice somebody, we might first do an estimate, but you wouldn't always do an estimate. An estimate is similar to a purchase order in that it doesn't actually record something. But if someone calls in and they're saying, how much will this cost if I buy this particular product, or if I do this landscaping project, you can then make the estimate, which looks like an invoice, but doesn't actually record it. And then if they actually want to follow through with it, you can take that estimate and create the invoice from the estimate. So that means that from the estimate side of things, we would like to know the status of the estimates. And typically we have, the pending, accepted, open, or closed estimates that might be the different tags that we put on the estimate, so that we can then sort them and see whether or not we want to follow up on the estimate to see if that particular client would like to follow through with the estimate. You would only be using estimates in particular types of businesses, most likely like a custom project, job cost type of system oftentimes. But also note, again, you have another estimates tab over here. So it's a little bit redundant that we have the estimates in this one, because we can also find them elsewhere. And then we've got the other forms in there, like the change orders, the credit memos. So a credit memo we'll talk more about later, but if they were to return the merchandise or something like that, we might have to issue a credit memo, so we can sort by the credit memo. The sales receipts, now this would be the ones where we sell something at a cash register. And so most likely here, we wouldn't normally need to sort for them. But if someone had like a return or something like that, we might find that here. But again, more likely we'd probably go into the customer in that situation. Unbilled income. So now these would be things like when we use the billable items, such as with the expense form and check forms that we talked about before, or we enter billable time, then it means that we've recorded the time, but we haven't actually sent out an invoice for it. So we could have a list here. That is one of the more useful items here, because this would be quite useful if we have a job cost system, for example, billing out the time of people that work for us, and then we want to look at the time so we can make them monthly bills or something like that, which we'll talk more about in the second half of the course. Money received, so we have the payments then, payment forms, and the sales receipts. So this would be basically the money in forms. Notice what's not in here typically is the deposit. So we talked about last time, when we think about our cycle, the easiest cycle we said was like gig work, in which case you just wait till it clears the bank and record the income with a deposit form. Because that form isn't the normal sales form, you're going to lose some tracking, because notice that that's not usually included here. Included here are the forms where the money is coming in from the sales forms, which are usually invoices and sales receipts. Now, again, if you have gig work, it would be easy to use the deposit form, and losing a little bit more of that kind of information might be worthwhile to have the simplicity of just using the bank feeds to record everything. And so then we've got the recently paid items, so that we've got paid on recently.